Hi, happy Monday. Today I wanted to share one of my favorite things from my leadership training at Harvard. This is a theory and a system that has worked for me in every area of my life in the last couple of years. It's absolutely been life-changing for me because it helps me from jumping straight to emotional conclusions, which for me often include my own feelings of inadequacy and lack of confidence, and which will prevent me, which will create a barrier of fear from me moving forward in my life and making decisions based on leadership in my life. So for me, like breaking it back down and jumping from climbing back down the ladder, right? From an assumption down to what actually happened and what is the data, that helps me to sort of maintain a control over my own emotional reactions to things. It's called the ladder of inference, and it's about how we as humans accept and interpret data and then turn that into beliefs and actions. Pretty fascinating stuff. So it looks like this, and I'll link to this image in the notes for you guys, so make sure you check there. The idea is that as human beings, we are programmed to make quick action based on data, right? So you see, for instance, like you're on a savanna and you see the color red off in the distance, and you have a split second to decide whether to stand still, whether to run towards it, or whether to run away, right? We have to make those split second decisions. So we are jumping from the data of there's a splash of red and some movement over there into a really quick action of run away because that's probably a lion and it might want to eat me too, right? So that's sort of how we're programmed. We're programmed to take in a lot of information all at once, filter through it really, really fast based on our previous experience, turn it into a worldview, turn it into understanding of what's happening, and then create actions based on that and act really, really fast, which is fantastic, right? That's the way that we got to where we are today. That's how our species was able to survive for as long as we have. But then we carry that forward into today's modern world, where we're interacting with colleagues, we have complicated interpersonal relationships with many, many people on lots of different levels. You have kids floating around in your house. You've got, a husband who's his own complex emotional being. And so we start turning, we take that instinct and we turn it into really quick action based on incomplete data sometimes, or we take it all in and we filter through it in ways that then lead to assumptions, judgments, and then action without always bringing it back down for ourselves into really understanding why we're having those emotional reactions and why we're creating the actions and the behaviors that we are. So that's kind of like the basic idea behind it. So the ladder is way at the bottom is observable data and experiences. Like what is actually happening that you can observe and point out and name around you. And then I'm selecting the data from what I experience. So you decide what is important. That's important, you guys. That is a survival skill. If we were always taking in every single piece of data and information that's around us, we would just sit here and be completely overwhelmed because there's so much information all the time. So you select the data from what you observe, you add meanings. Yeah, so I take what my brain sees and I create meaning from that. My brain sees a splash of red in the distance and I'm creating a meaning from that based on my past experiences that I live on a savanna where there are lions, right? Whereas someone in a different area of the world might interpret that very, very differently. So you add meanings, you make assumptions based on that. That's a big one, so we're going to focus on that one a lot today. I draw conclusions based on all of those assumptions that I just made. I adopt beliefs about the world, and then I take action based on those beliefs. So that's a big thing. So as you move up the ladder of inference, you're becoming more and more judgy is a word I like to use. If you move back down the ladder, you're focusing more on observable data, the things that are actually happening, rather than the judgments that you're making from it. So how does this apply to real life? How does this apply to our lives and the way that we take leadership and the way that we take ownership over what is happening to us? I'll give an example. I was just attending an event and, we were about halfway through the event and my friend said to me, I don't think that one person likes me very much. And I was like, well, okay, but why, right? So she had made this assumption, created this belief that the other person didn't like her. And I was like, well, what did she do? Let's bring it back down the ladder. What did she do that makes you feel that way? And so we had to like bring it back down and say, well, she reacted this way when I walked in the room. She said or didn't say this thing. And what ended up happening was that when I asked my friend to tell me exactly what this other person had done that made her jump to that assumption and that conclusion that she wasn't liked, it was very difficult for her to actually pull data from the situation. And what it turns out is that the other person actually had just not done anything. Does that make sense? So this other person had not like jumped out of her chair to greet her. She had not given her a big hug when we arrived. She had not done these things. But what she actually did was exactly nothing. But that made my friend feel, based on her previous experience and her previous background, she had kind of come to the assumption and the conclusion way up here on the ladder that she wasn't liked. So that's one way that applies. I mean, we all have issues, right? So I've got some issues that I bring with me forward from probably middle school and elementary school. You guys, I was real nerdy and like, I was really lame. And all of the other people in my grade were like so cool and none of them liked me. Like I pretty much went through elementary school and middle school feeling like nobody liked me, which is awesome. So now I'm a grown up and I still have that baggage that I carry with me, right? That's my previous background, that's my experience. When, for example, my husband doesn't answer my questions in a complete sentence, I find myself jumping way up here to like, oh no, he doesn't like me either. Which like, you guys, he's my husband. Like he married me, right? So I'm pretty sure he likes me okay. But so when he like gives me a short answer to something, I'm sort of like, oh no, he doesn't like me. Cause that's like my previous experience, right? But then I bring it back down and I'm like, wait a second. Okay, so what actually happened? What's the data? What's the observable stuff that actually happened? And it's like, oh, wait, okay, no. He just got home from like an 18-hour day at work. He hasn't had a beer yet. And I asked him a question that had nothing to do with what he was talking about a minute ago. So when I go back, right, and I actually look at what actually happened, then I go from this emotional reaction of he doesn't like me or he's mad at me or now I have to fix something into bringing it right back down to like, oh, no, actually what happened is these things and those things may not actually need fixing. You know, the next time you feel yourself having like a big, like wanting to make a big action about something, maybe take a breath, take a step back and think to yourself, like, am I making an assumption based on data, based on things that are actually going on? Or am I jumping to an assumption based on my experience and my background and the baggage that I bring with me, like from middle school? And then bring it back in and say, okay, what actually happened? What did this person actually say? What did that email actually say? Not what is the feeling that I got from it, or making an assumption about anyone else's intentions when they say those things, but really saying like, these are the words that were used. This is the observable data. And now how should I react to that? Not jumping to an immediate emotional reaction. I hope this is helpful. Enjoy. I hope you're having a wonderful week, and I hope that you can put this into action immediately. Have a great one, guys.